Roll call. Cox, are you here?
Yes, sir, I am.
Great. How about you, Mr. Evans?
I'm here too.
Great.
Thank you, Dr. Rogers, present.
Commissioner Abbott.
Would you approve the agenda, sir?
Great. Okay, no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Would you approve the consent agenda?
Discussion? Sure. Okay. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. And we have, we have a sign-up sheet today. Okay. All right, we're moving right along today. Okay. This morning we have, Mary Fernandez, CPA. You have to tell me what that one means, but you do a presentation on our audit, so go ahead. What does the second part of your title mean?
Certified evaluation analyst.
Okay.
Yeah. I was trying to do it using the clicker, but the clicker does not want to cooperate, so it's alright. Sorry, technology. So, yes, I am Mary Fernandez with DG Perry CPAs and Advisors out of Zephyr Hills, and we did the 2024 audit for Pasco County Mosquito Control District. So I was audit manager for this year's audit. So today we're kind of going through the financials, kind of what our responsibilities are, what your responsibility as a client, and then of course the financial results for the 2024 year. So for our responsibilities, yes, we audited the financials, conducted in accordance to GAS. We have to understand controls, of course, of the district regarding financial reporting. We look at compliance matters that impact the financials. And then of course, one of the non-attached service is we actually help prepare the financial statements for the 2024 year. So this is all in the PowerPoint. Thank you. So as far as like the district's responsibilities, of course, like they have to prepare, the financial statements using like let's say like QuickBooks. It has to be commissioner oversight, maintaining controls, and then of course designate someone that's able, has the skills, knowledge, and experience to oversee the financial statement preparation. So some of these are our required communications as the auditor to the auditee. Basically we have to present and show in the note disclosures what's called the significant accounting policies. And those are all in the notes to the financials. So if you have the report in front of you and you go kind of near the middle, almost to the back, those are the notes to the financials. If you're trying to follow along, forget exactly what page they start on, but it's after all the basic financial statements. So we always say you want to look at the financials as well as the notes together, because the notes help explain, those numbers and kind of where they come from versus for the significant accounts. And the policies of the district. So note 1 is where those kind of start. We have to, give disclosures on the significant estimates, which for the district, of course, are the remaining useful lives of fixed assets. And then, of course, the OPEB obligations. And a lot of those come for actuarial studies that are done. And then we take those studies and pull that into the report for those numbers. We'd like to say we encountered no difficulties during the audit. It's a very clean audit. To our knowledge, of course, there were no consultations by outside CPAs or accountants done other than me ourselves. We did, there were any misstatements. Those we identified. We gave adjusting entries for those. Those were posted by management. And then we did not have any uncorrected misstatements that we were aware of. As far as disagreements, no, we did not have any disagreements with management that we were aware of. There were no internal control matters that were required to be communicated as well. So what you're looking for, of course, if you were looking at the report itself and that report letter or opinion letter would be an unmodified or what we call a clean opinion. did issue a clean or an unmodified opinion on the 2024 financials, which is what you wanna see. As far as internal control, like I mentioned a second ago, we did not come across any instances of non-compliance in accordance to gas. And then next we're gonna go over some of the financial results. So here, this is the statement in that position, which is a government-wide, one of the government-wide financial statements. It shows your assets, shows your deferred outflows, current, non-current, and then your ending net position at the end of the year. So it's kind of like a snapshot of where the district was at the end of the year, in a sense. So this is a statement of activities. This here, of course, shows expenses. Okay, main program here is public health, of course, mosquito control. So this breaks down kind of like in a summary of what the major expenditures were for the 2024 year. And then the next section shows where the major revenues come from, which of course here is property taxes, right? So that shows this little breakdown, and then you have the interest or other, which is like miscellaneous, and then you have what's called the beginning net position. So you have the increase, for the current year, so that's your expenditures minus your revenue. So revenues was above expenditures, so you have an increase, what we call an increase in net position, plus beginning gives you your ending. So that ties back to the previous statement, if you're trying to see where those numbers kind of come from. So this here, we always like to show a 5-year trend, because actually for governmentals, if you're kind of looking near the back of the report, kind of in the notes section, we have to give like 10 years worth of data for like OPEB and the proportionate share of FRS and those sort of things. But we always like to give in this PowerPoint at least a 5-year snapshot using those basic financial statements. So either the government-wide or your fund financial statements, okay? Because there's some differences between those two because of the reporting model. So this is the 5-year for the general or governmental fund revenue. Okay, so of course the biggest portion comes from property tax, right? Because that's the major revenue source. So, and then that's the blue, and so the orange is other. So you might say, well, 2024, okay, the orange really like increased compared to prior years. That's actually due, most of that, to the interest income on that Florida Prime investment that you guys have. So when I looked at it, I said, well, because, oh yeah, that's a big bulk of that. It increased quite a bit from 2023 to 2024 because of that Florida Prime. So, because it hadn't been in effect very long, since I think it was like 2023. So that was that spike there for 2024 from 23.
Paid $582,000
Yes.
on interest.
Okay.
That's a good
Yeah.
suggestion there.
Good
Rick.
passive
So I
income.
paid for my salary for 128 years.
Yeah.
Very good passive income. Yeah, Ricky. Wish I had that kind of investment. But yeah, so right, that's where that came from, right? So this here is the total expenditures for the year. So again, that 5-year trend, because we like showing that, like the hills and the valleys, right? So 2024, it did go up, and you'll see, yes, okay, well, what caused that? The biggest thing when I was looking at it was materials and services. So that's like your chemicals. Of course, it was related right to spraying, more chemicals, your expenses go up, right? So I believe when I talked to Jose, it was a very like wet kind of year, and like when I talked to inventory, like there might have been more rainfall. We don't get too much into what kind of caused like that end of it, but that was
hurricanes.
and
Also,
2 hurricanes.
Most active arbovirus year we've had on record.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, see, there you go. You guys provide the backstory on that. But when I was looking at the numbers, like, we're like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense then. We move on because, more spraying, okay, more chemicals, right? So basically, yeah, that's kind of what the biggest increase was here. Personnel services didn't really increase, which is like your salaries and wages. But yeah, the biggest thing is the materials here. So this is the balance sheet, which is the governmental fund, so not government-wide, because like I said, like the reporting models are different for the two, right? One's like modified accrual, and then when you have full accruals. So here, you're not gonna see those non-current assets like you would on like a for-profit balance sheet. It's strictly current. That's how it is reported for governmental funds. So here, you're only gonna see like, again, your cash, your investment, and then you're gonna general liabilities and see, accounts payable, and then of course, your fund balance again. But you're not gonna see anything non-current on this balance sheet, okay? So this is a statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance, governmental funds. Here it starts first with the revenues. Again, there's property taxes, you have miscellaneous, there's your interest that you just talked about a second ago, $582,000 roughly, which was I think around a 400+ thousand difference from prior year. And then surplus property, so that might be some like equipment that was sold, maybe some, I think this year there were some vehicles that were sold this year. So that's kind of what that number is. Of course, your expenditures, a little bit more broken down. Or, kind of still a summary, but a little bit more out, kind of spread out compared to the previous statement. So you're using gasoline, chemicals, those sort of things. If you were to look like at the report itself, because governments have to do an actual to budget comparison, they're required to do that. So if you want to see like the current year, the 2024, comparison, that is of course in the report. So you can see that breakdown as percentages, and then what was it favorable or unfavorable compared to the budget. So this is just simply the statements from the report itself. And then, of course, at the end, you have what's called, of course, the excess, or if it was under, over, under revenue, if expenditures were. Here, it was over, so we brought in, of course, more revenue than the expenditures were. So that's basically a surplus, kind of. And then, of course, again, you have that fund balance beginning, and then, so those two together, and then, of course, that comes to your fund balance at the end of the year. So this chart here, again, like to get the 5-year kind of trends to see those breakdowns, like more visual of like, hey, like, well, how did we do compared to 3 years ago? Those sort of, oh yeah, that was a really active year, rainfall. So you kind of see those dips, think about, okay, well, for the future, or kind of to see in the past, what kind of for the future, right? So we kind of like giving those, again, that 5-year trend to see what kind of happened those years. So again, for this year, of course, chemicals, that went up, kind of what happened there. The other major thing I noticed this year was in maintenance. So there was, I think it was like a service, kind of the aviation that doesn't happen every year. It's only required every so many years. And that was a good chunk of money. As far as like when that was done, I think it was in February of 24. So that was like, okay, well that could lead to a spike or an increase, right, in the maintenance from year to year.
I think we had an insurance increase as well.
There was an insurance increase, but it was also the 24-month inspection
Yeah.
on both aircraft.
Right, thank you. Yeah, inspection. My brain could not formulate that word. But yeah, it's inspection, right. So those sort of things, insurance, right, those, anything like that can cause spike or increases. But I think that's happening. A lot of clients I've seen, insurance is just skyrocketing. So, that's not atypical really. So this here is a nice little line chart of kind of just what the excess of revenues over expenditures were. Again, that 5-year trend. So, it could lead to, I know, like, I think it was 22 maybe, like in the last couple of years, there's been more like capital outlay, of course, which now I understand is kind of being, something's done here at this campus. So there was some of that, of course, in 23 and 24 as well. Of course, 24 also saw like that, the inspections, the chemicals. So still went up overall. It did increase, probably mostly due to that, the interest income coming up. But you can kind of, again, just see those 5-year trends of how it did. So this is the total fund balance by year. Again, we like to get that 5-year trend to kind of see, those hills and valleys of like where it's rising and falling. So overall, I mean, it's increased, you know, ever since. If you look at like 21, okay, 22 on, for the last 3 years, it's increased, you know, the total fund balance by year. Except for 23, I guess the 24, that should probably be flip-flop, but well, no, actually, it's right, 11 million, sorry. So it's actually, yeah, it is increasing year after year. 2020, 21's only dip, and then it started, you know, increasing. So it's, but that, yeah, we like to give that as a nice little visual comparison. That's actually it for the PowerPoint. Do you guys have any questions on the report itself? And you're always more than welcome for us to email us if you have questions afterwards, but yeah.
Mr. Evans' name is misspelled.
It's misspelled.
Yes, you cheated me out of an L.
I am so sorry.
That's
I will
all right.
tell my superiors.
I didn't
She
mention
proofed
it,
it.
so-
We will fix that for next time. I
That's all right.
apologize.
Yeah, page 25, post-employment benefits.
Let me get there real quick.
Okay, liability.
The OPEB.
Yeah, where are we tracking on that? What was, do you have notes there, what the previous year was, and has that been changed, or?
Yeah, so if you look at like, so you're at the note 9, about middle of the page, changes in total OPEB liability.
What page is that?
25, where you were?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so the top number there is what it was previous year, 427,000 roughly.
Okay.
Okay, and then we show the changes based on the OPEB valuation that was done, that's where those numbers come from, to give the ending, so it actually decreased at the end of 2024 compared to 23.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, when that started, we had to hire out an actuary. Are you all doing this now, or is there another actuary jumping in?
Another actuary, we do not perform the OPEB valuation at all, no sir. That's done by an outside actuary, that's a report that we get from Jose.
And when was that done?
I can look back at it, I believe it was it would have been, let me look. Let me get back to my office because I can look at the report, I don't wanna give you a wrong date.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
that'd be good. Yeah, if you can
I'll
follow
give-
up with that,
yeah,
you can just tell
I
some
will give you
history
that
on
for sure.
And,
No problem.
and that shows up, let's see, that's a budget line item, right?
Well, it actually
It is.
says right here, because if right above that, on page 25,
Yeah.
so it says liabilities for this report were calculated as a current measurement date for that GAD 75 opinion as of September 30th of 24. But they may have issued their report a few months after that, but that's when it was done as of, so at the end of the year.
Okay.
Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah. And,
Actually, we have the date, it was December 4th. Thank you. December 4th of 24 when that report was issued.
okay, and must have been Jose, you must have engaged that actuary, is that who did that?
Right, I think
So it's the same actuary we use numerous times, it's Van
Warden, I
Van
think
Warden,
it-
yeah, Van Warden is
Okay,
the
very
name
good.
of the
Let's move
company.
on.
On a motion to approve or accept.
Any other questions? No?
Move that we accept the 2024 audit.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Next thing, we're moving on to schedule, September board meetings and budget hearings in, September timeframe.
Yes, so as you all know, we have to wait to schedule our September budget hearings until after both the school board and the Board of County Commissioners set their budget hearing schedule, and so, The numbers on the September calendar here, I'm sorry, the dates on the September calendar here that have red X's, dates to avoid, some of which are those dates from the school board and the BOCC. We have Labor Day holiday, we have a tour date in there, so I'm proposing to start off the conversation, if you can all pull out your calendars for the month of September, that we look to schedule our first budget hearing on the 4th of September, possibly, if that works for you all. So if you can take a look.
Okay, done.
Works for you?
That works.
4th and 18th work.
Okay.
Give me one more second. Yeah, it works.
Alright, then we'll schedule the meetings, our first budget hearing for September 4th. So typically, we do these at 5:01 PM. Does that time work for everyone? It have to be after 5 o'clock.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then on the 18th, we'll do our regularly scheduled monthly meeting. We typically start those at 3:30, would that work? And then, we continue on until 5 o'clock. If we are still in the normal monthly meeting, then we pause that meeting, switch over, conduct the budget hearing, final budget hearing at 5:01 PM. And then if we need to continue on monthly meeting, we can do that afterwards. Does that
Agreed.
time frame work?
Agreed.
Okay, so.
18th, you said at 3 or 3:30?
3:30 is what we've done in the past,
Yeah,
but
okay.
I'm open to,
No, that's fine.
okay, so 3:30 for the monthly meeting, 5:01 PM on the 18th for the final budget hearing. Okay. Very good. Thank you.
All right. That's nice and easy. Next item is, a budget amendment for 24-25, our current year.
So this is to add the grant funding that we received from the CDC grant. So just sharing up the budget based on that.
Which grant?
The CDC grant funding that we received word of technically for the prior year, but didn't actually get it until September, October,
Okay.
or, yeah, a little after the start of the fiscal year.
Let's see, that was 124,000.
The total that was received to date, yes, 124,000. So again, this is reimbursement based, so we had to actually spend the money and then seek the reimbursement, so that's
Okay.
why it's happening now.
Okay.
Super.
You want that signature afterwards?
Yes, please.
Okay, very good. Any comment on that?
I move for approval.
Okay. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Approved. I'll sign it at the tail end. And then we move on to the first draft of the next year's budget. So the floor is yours.
All right, thank you very much. So you do have in front of you, first draft of the 2025-2026 fiscal year budget. I'll remind you that we have until those budget hearings, in September to finalize the budget, so these numbers will change between now and then. This is just the first rough draft. Some of the numbers are not yet available, so those are definitely going to change, while others, we're still finalizing some research on appropriate costs, and so, as we move along over the next couple of months, those numbers will be shored up. Overall, the main categories, over the last couple of years, we've been tweaking different line items, adding things to make it more streamlined, putting things in the appropriate categories from where they were 5 years ago. So we're continuing to make these fine-tune adjustments over time. As you know, the main categories, those that appear on that first page of your budget, with the expenditure summary, those are the FDAC's required items that we have on the budget. Everything else is our own internal record-keeping mechanism. And so, all of the line items, in addition to those on that front page, are just for us internally. Those aren't required by DAX, but we try to itemize things more appropriately so that we actually know where in those categories the money is being allocated and therefore spent. So you will see some differences if you're comparing last year's budget to this year's. by line item, things are different. So I can highlight some of those. If you have specific questions, of course, ask.
Okay, on,
Go ahead.
on 45.00, page 1. Where,
On page 1, the summary?
yep,
Okay.
where does the aerial insurance land in this summary report?
That is all under insurance.
Aerial
Under-
included?
Yes. All of it is under the insurance category from DAX, yes, so that is 45.0.
So, okay, I'm finally turning it off. It's amazing what happens when you have a prescription come in. So that's property casualty, everything.
That's everything.
Why do I think that's low?
Well, if you flip to the detail, you can see what it
Okay.
includes.
I really wish that you give us these, that you show us what was budgeted and what was spent prior year. I know that in here is, you know, the current year and all of that, but it's hard to, I wish it was just on the same page.
Okay, so you would like year-to-date expenditures?
Yeah, year to date.
Against
and
the
what-
budget.
And what the budget amount was.
So we do have that in the financials, so understanding it's a different report, so you do have to flip.
Yeah,
But so you just want
yeah.
that all on,
Yeah.
on one page, okay. We can try to make that fit.
Well, now that you're doing them this way, I mean, that you've got a little real estate there, that
Yes.
hopefully be good.
So I'm sorry, we're looking for
Yeah, I see it.
aerial, so it's.
It's there, yeah.
Yep, 45.0.02. Now, the insurance numbers are not yet updated, that's one of those things we don't have yet. So those numbers, we have an increase as a placeholder, but those aren't the real numbers yet.
What percentage increase?
So does workman's comp
It
fall
depends
some?
on what it is, but I can get you that specific, cause aerial is different from health and liability. I'm sorry?
So like workman's comp falls somewhere else?
Workers' comp is its own line item, yes.
Okay.
20,
24.
yes, thank you. 20.24.0.
Okay. Thank you.
And that's
Clarification.
based on, again, trying to shore them up to the FDA's main categories.
Oh, I see.
Because things have historically not been broken out to that level of detail.
Okay.
So, one thing that I like to talk about is, your direct employees versus indirect employees.
Okay?
You know, so, sort of look at this as like, you know, from a simple standpoint, but for. So, you know, but for shop mechanic, the people who are actually driving around would not be able to do that if we didn't have a shop mechanic. You know, so I really feel like that basically the majority of people that we have listed as indirect employees really are more direct employees, because they're supporting the operations. And if the district didn't exist, which positions would go away, right? So if we were a county program, your finance director, human resources, those are the ones that are indirect employees.
But they're
If I
not.
can give you some history,
Yeah.
I agree, shop, I think should be included as a direct cost.
I agree.
The reason they're broken out this way, we did not distinguish indirect versus direct prior to the OPATA review a couple
Yeah.
of years ago.
Yeah.
And so during that process, these were the positions that they considered to be direct versus indirect. We tried to make the argument for the shop positions, for example, and I think there was some discrepancy across the mosquito control districts that were, that they reviewed.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I certainly think that they should be direct. These are based off of what was finalized in our OPAGA report for Pasco County Mosquito Control District. So, in an effort to keep consistency, we did it this way, but if you would like us to change that, I certainly support that justification.
Yeah.
But the shop people can be outsourced for maintenance of the vehicles, that's how I'm seeing it being.
Which I think is
So-
the traditional sense of a shop mechanic, yes,
Right.
but because of the nature of how we utilize a shop mechanic,
Exactly.
they're also specialized in mosquito control equipment repair, they're not just servicing vehicles.
Oh, I get it.
And so that's the distinguishing
You
factor,
could, you
and
could also
and that was the
outsource
argument.
aviation maintenance,
Yes,
right? But,
Sure.
so, but aviation maintenance is indirect.
it
Whereas
again
the
comes down
shops
to the manner
are
in
not.
which we're using
Yeah,
the
yeah,
vehicles.
I understand, you know, that's how the Ohio report did it, but, you know, quite frankly, I think they're wrong.
I agree.
Right? You know, and I'd like to just see that change. I mean, it doesn't, from a dollar standpoint, it doesn't make a difference, but, you know, but for the shop out there, those trucks are not gonna go out and spray and, you know, everything else that they do. And, you know, the fact of the matter is that if we were a county program, all this stuff would be less charged back to that department. You know, I mean, when an ambulance breaks down, and goes into the shop in Pasco County, those fees ultimately go back to the fire department's budget.
Right.
Right.
So I can certainly, we can make those adjustments.
Yeah.
That-
They
that
actually
was-
do
that
it.
was the reason that.
They actually do it differently. They actually say, okay, every month, your department has to pay X number of dollars for maintenance of that vehicle. And they do that for every piece of equipment that they have. You know, that's how they do it. It actually is that department is actually a profit center, so to speak, because it's pulling money from one side, putting it over here, instead of just using total charges. Anyways, at this point, that's probably the only thing that I've seen, you know.
So that, just for clarification then, so if we do move that, the shop supervisor, the fabrication specialist, shop mechanic positions,
The facility maintenance,
the facilities maintenance,
yep,
okay,
so the shop supervisor, facility maintenance coordinator, fabrication specialist, shop mechanic, two, administrative assistant, that's internal, this building,
yes,
okay, and then shop mechanic.
okay.
Just my thoughts on what the other
And we have
positions.
made a version to that? This is all really just for our own internal
Right,
process.
right.
Okay, do you have, some additions that you would not have seen in last year's budget? We need another position in entomology, to help keep up with the increased demand for additional surveillance. With last year as a shining example, because as you all know, we respond to every parvoviral disease case when it is suspected. And so the sheer number of cases that we had to respond to last year, we can't keep up with the workload in entomology. We're always pulling staff from other departments just to set traps. So this position would be, same functions as our mosquito identification specialist, although we're gonna tweak that name a little bit, because their job duties are more than that. So performing surveillance, doing mosquito identification, and assisting with lab work and research, new product field trials, things of that nature. So that you will see in the budget.
So entomology technician you've added.
Well, it's currently listed as mosquito identification specialist. We're working on a better name.
So, okay, so that's the new.
That's a new position, yes. And then, also asking for another, administrative position for the fulfillment of records requests. Anticipated salary plus benefits of that position is about $51,000, additional $5,000 in attorney fees. Really just to handle the amount of records requests that we have received over the past couple of years. We've experienced a significant and entirely unprecedented increase in records requests. Historically, the district received an average of only 2 records requests per year. However, in the last 6 months alone, people associated with this small group of individuals have submitted more than 20 records requests in the last 6 months alone, in which are substantial, and this volume of each request is tremendous and really directly connected to recent termination of employees, and the surge in the requests, and it's really caused a significant burden on district resources. Responding to records requests requires substantial administrative and professional time to identify what possible responsive records that we have, coordinate with the appropriate personnel who have those records, whether it be administrative, personnel records, aviation data from various treatments, the review of the documents for exempt or sensitive information that by law we are obligated to do when necessary, and the consultation with legal on these. It's often involves very high salaried staff that can respond to these, including myself and other district leadership positions. And of course, it just diverts attention away from the essential operations and the duties that we're performing in protecting public health. Most of these records requests require legal review, which again further increases the cost, so I did not include an extra specifically for this in the legal fees section, but you will see that number increase before the next budget draft. Taken together, these requests do not contribute to the district's mission. In fact, it's the exact opposite. They result in a substantial drain on our funds and our staff capacity. So in order to manage these requests more effectively and more efficiently, and to reduce the disruption of the disruption to our operation, I'm requesting that we create one additional dedicated administrative position that is focused solely on handling public records management. And so you do see that this role will allow the district to centralize and streamline the response process, minimize staff disruption across all of those departments that it involves, and help control the legal costs in preparing some of these responses for appropriate legal review prior to that point. So I think this is a responsible and proactive measure that we can take to ensure that we meet our statutory obligation while safeguarding district resources for their primary purpose, which, just in case anyone in the room has forgotten, is to protect public health and serve our community.
Certainly watched the Pasco clerk's office go through this, and they ended up putting a dedicated person in that position. And, it worked for them, it does work for them. It's increased cost to the taxpayers, but that's the kind of government we seem to be within these days with all the additional litigation and everything.
Well, I mean, public record request, we're gonna get to a policy here in a minute, but, at the end of the day, the people making the request are gonna pay that. So, they wanna just continue to, give requests that produces nothing. I mean, nothing, there's been no smoking gun that's been discovered by all this, stuff. So, build it into their budget for the
I'm
personnel.
not sure that's legal, but you can,
Well, challenges.
okay.
And
I would
And
encourage
I will say, I have not sent anywhere near 20 public records requests in the past 6 months.
So the monies we
Clearly, I'm
collect
listening to
don't
the
make
words
a
that are
dent
coming
in
out of my mouth.
salary.
But, so, the amounts that, you know, I just described, the amount of time that it takes to actually process the request is one thing, but the amount of time that it takes for myself and other individuals to actually identify which records are even available to fulfill those requests, and then find them and be able to provide them is not something that we can charge for. We can charge for actually fulfilling the request, so, you know, if it takes more than 15 minutes of staff time, legally, we're obligated to do that. And also, we have to review the material for redaction, and, you know, I think that's a bigger point of contention, is that we have a legal obligation to protect sensitive and exempt information that could potentially be in any of these records under Chapter 119 of the Florida statutes. So we have to review all of the records that go out prior to actually releasing them. And, you know, we're looking for personal data, confidential communications, or other exempt material that would have to properly be redacted. And this is not an option, it's a statutory requirement. And regardless of the individual's interpretation of the law, that is what we are obligated to do. And these recent requests have been exceptionally broad and time-consuming to even identify what we have available and how long it's going to take to fulfill a records request, so that we can then invoice the individual to actually try to recoup some of those costs. They require extensive clerical and legal review, and their standard practice. This is standard practice across all public entities in the state of Florida to manage such a workload. And it's especially necessary now, given that, so Ms. Julian, you say you have not submitted 20, and I did not say you
Okay,
have
I'm
submitted 20.
not saying
I said
it.
you and the individuals connected with you and former permanent employees, but you alone have submitted over 13 large records requests in the last 6 months, which is a stark increase from our
Okay.
typical average of 2 per year. So prior to the surge, we rarely needed to dedicate staff to this. It was simple, you know, they were searching for our salaries. Every year we get that request. You know, that doesn't take a whole lot of effort, but when you're talking about the voluminous amount of work that's required to fulfill the records requests that they come in so broadly is very, very time consuming, and given the scope and complexity of these requests, again, which require thorough review for potential redaction and legal guidance to avoid releasing exempt information or protected information. You know, our priority is, of course, to maintain compliance with all applicable laws. We have significantly increased transparency in the last 5 years that I've been in this role, and to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars and to do what we're doing responsibly. Processing these types of voluminous records requests it's often they're unfocused requests that are require extensive review, and this is exactly what we're doing, complying with all applicable laws. And it's not about withholding information, it's about protecting privacy and ensuring legal compliance and recovering responsible costs when we can. But it's not, unfortunately, the cost of this bill does not actually incorporate all of the time and salary dollars that are spent in actually responding to these. And we have to remain focused on district operations, and public safety continues to take a priority.
You know, so county government and school board, I'm not too sure about the cities. I'm gonna do a little investigating about that. But, you know, they certainly have, clerk's office, constitutional officers. They have a lot more resources than we do, and, you know, they've had to do the exact same thing.
it's, first draft, so, sorry, if I look into the detail of it, I don't really have much comment right now until we dig into it. Get back with you on it, the budget. Any other comments on the draft budget, folks? Randy? No? Okay.
Thank you.
Adrian, you?
Nope, just ask for you to, bring any
Oh, I
questions
do
you
have
to
one,
the next meeting.
I actually do have one other thing on it. Is there any reflection here of the hurricane reimbursement monies?
No, because we do not know if we're going to be receiving those funds yet.
Okay.
And if we do, we don't know which fiscal year they're going to fall.
Okay. Yeah.
The last report, received, I do have this later in my director's report, but,
How much did we request?
the total for both storms, around 2.7 million. 2.3. The period for response was very long on Hurricane Milton because of all of the, Hurricane Milton, because of the 3 months worth of floodwater that remained on the ground in East Pasco. So that was for both Helene and Milton combination. So we don't know if those funds will get released or when that might be.
Mhm.
So no, it does not reflect, it is not reflected in.
Yeah, I remember Hurricane Irma, it took about 2 years. Okay.
Sorry if I may, just, I had a question on your, 44, .00. The, rentals and leases, I understand the copy machines and printers. What other, leases do we have? Is our computer equipment leased?
So the main copiers, are hubs, and so they're, multiple computers are connected to them, so that includes, the copy machines with the printer, so that's that line item.
Right.
And then the other is for things like, heavy machinery that we need to move things around the campus.
Okay.
If you
For
recall.
moving tires and
moving
stuff?
the skid steer that we
Right,
requested
okay.
last year.
Yep.
We went to leasing option versus purchasing outright, so that includes heavy machinery to
Okay.
do that sort of thing.
Sounds good, thank you.
All right. Next, item on the agenda is the, proposed, public records request policy update. All yours, Adrian.
Can we take a little recess?
Good idea. Okay, break for 5.
That's how we figured it out.
Sorry, one second. No, you're fine.
We'll be back tomorrow.
No problem. Can you get through?
Oh, yeah, hey, I'm not that
I had too
smart.
much, I had too much spaghetti last night. Oh.
How's the hiker today? Very good.
I'm thinking about my next trip.
Good, that's always good.
Where'd you go?
I would go to Pacific Northwest,
Oh.
Oregon, Washington,
It's really pretty up there.
insane. I
Yeah.
mean, just, well, I went to Cape Flattery, which is the most northwestern point of the United States.
Oh, really? Okay.
Like, I was basically in Alaska. It was
Yeah, yeah.
just,
Nice.
the weather was nice, I mean, it rained a lot, but it always rains
Yeah, yeah.
over there.
Yeah.
But, you know, 60s, 70s.
I had a neighbor move from here up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he's also back there.
Different, you know, I did Yosemite last year.
That's
And
good.
just the different climate, Olympic, Washington,
Yeah,
more
yeah.
rainforest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trees,
Well, actually, it's not what I call it.
Yosemite's like
Oh,
rock.
I'm good.
And his wife was working.
I was there second.
Yeah, nice.
Good looking.
I started in Oregon and traveled up and around back out to Seattle.
Okay. That's pretty good.
They're
Yeah.
so well known in that area, they live up in Signal Mountain. Do you know Chattanooga? A little bit. Okay. What's that? Roughly. Yeah. A little bit, yeah. So, all right, okay. Yeah. Just like you or I, you didn't boast about it, talk about it, you know, you have to really give
discuss, otherwise, I'm looking for approval to move forward.
Yeah, I think it's long overdue, actually. Yeah, and so the one, I guess it's on the second page, regarding the volume and trying to do, it electronically. Um, So the fact that we are gonna be charging for the drives, whether it be a flash drive or external hard drive. Um, I don't know if we need to put something in there that this implies that we're gonna be providing it and charging for that. But I can certainly see people wanting to say, well, here, just put it on my flash drive. And that is just a way for us to become infected with malware.
Agreed.
So, I mean, it may be just some statement there that, this will be provided by.
Where exactly are you on it?
I'm on page 2, it's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th bullet down, starts with whenever possible.
Oh, yes. So if we can allow language, to protect from malicious computer intent.
Yeah, I just,
Not sure exactly
I
what
think you
that
just need to
means.
say, in case the requester may be responsible for actual cost of media drive that will be provided by the district. Or provided by PCMCD.
Do we need some sort of responsibility that it's been downloaded successfully and to that drive? And it's defective or whatever. I mean, just, and then we gotta go back and redo it all over again. It's just, I don't know, if it's a hard copy, then
Right. Not sure what language we can
I'm not sure how we would do that.
put
either.
in there to,
Like certify that the information that's on the drive is
Exactly, that-
accessible, other than letting somebody, like we plug it in front of them and hold up the records and have them sign off that the record something like that. But I don't know how you would certify,
I
you know,
just
the drive
foresee.
itself. I get it, yeah.
yeah.
Well, it's a
Um,
format is what you're really talking about,
Right.
what format are we gonna provide it?
Oh, I would always do PDF, no matter what.
Yeah, we don't provide Word documents or
Nothing to be
something
edited,
we can
Right.
be secure and locked.
Right.
Mhm. Um,
I don't know, do we
We-
wanna shoehorn ourselves into hard copies, or, I mean, electronic's very efficient and time saving and.
I don't know that we can
Yeah.
dictate how the response is provided. We have to provide it, if they request hard copy, we have to provide it, if they request if we can allow them to request electronic, and a lot of them, most of them are electronic. And they're sent via email the majority of the time. This would be for, the real voluminous ones.
Mhm.
We can explore some options on if there's any language that might, work for that.
I just don't wanna get shoehorned into something and then something happens, or, anything can happen.
yeah, I can think of
You
a
say,
few.
well, I never received it, or.
And then where it says the charges for staff time shall not exceed, including benefits, of the lowest paid employee capable of performing the work. So, there's different aspects of that.
flexibility, because, yes, if it's a simple, we have the record, let me just copy and copy it to PDF and send it, that's fine. And if it's a, financial document versus, my personal text messages, those are very different people who have to review them, and so it's the least, I'm sorry, how did it read?
It says, charges for staff time shall not exceed the rate including benefits of the lowest paid employee capable of performing the work.
Right, so it's specific depending on each individual request, and so the language is broad to allow that flexibility. And that's, again, based on the statute language. This all went through legal review.
Yeah, I figured that.
Many hours?
Yeah. So I don't recall seeing anything in here in how the, records requests are accepted.
How they are accepted?
Yeah, so you mentioned, most of them come via email.
Oh, you mean how we receive
Yeah.
the request?
Yeah, does the statute address that at all? I don't know.
The statute language is broad. It can be any manner available. They can come in the office and request something to a staff member.
Verbally?
Verbally. It can be an electronic email, it can be a letter that they send to the district. The statute allows for them to come in a variety of different ways, yes.
So, does the statute specifically mention or allow for verbal?
It does.
Cause I can see what happening, they'll say, well, I requested this, but you gave me this,
So as a process, for instances where that happens, where we do receive verbal requests, we write it down and have the individual verify.
Okay.
That's what we do.
Okay, that sounds good. Alright, I'll move for approval.
Further discussion, Randall? Randall?
The two of
Two
them.
L's.
Cheat me out of my L.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you for getting that together. And Laura? Allison?
Send us a bill, I'm sure.
Next time's, Realtor Service Agreements, Berkshire Hathaway. I see the amendment. Am I missing the Realtor agreement, or is it in here? Do you all have it yours?
You all received it prior to this meeting, so.
Number under PDF was it?
Yes, so I did
I do
not
see it on
reprint
that.
it. I apologize for that.
Could
Yeah.
somebody reprint it, please?
Reprint those.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so let's move on, and we'll come back to that. So, let's move on to the, RFP for an architect selection, and, once again, Adrian, lead that discussion, please.
I can do that. If, Lindsay, do you have the Realtor Service Agreement?
I do.
Can you print that? Okay, perfect, thank you. Cause I cannot do that and also lead the
I
discussion.
That's what I was thinking might jump on.
Yeah, actually, Lena, if you're prepared to talk about the details on the RFP 2025-01 and our process. Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
so the district we solicited RFPs for, architects for renovation, addition, expansion of this campus. We went through, we received probably 15 to 20 inquiries. Of that, we had 7, that actually submitted hard, responses. We went through a process of evaluation of each of the, submitted submissions with the evaluation committee, that was comprised of mostly team members from the district, and Jonathan. And to which of that evaluation, we shortlisted 2 individuals. We held our shortlist interviews yesterday, and reached a selection of PBK, to which we are recommending to move forward with that.
Who were the other ones?
In the shortlist, MBA, Mason Blau and Associates, and PBK.
Well, I've been traveling, so I have not had time to review this. So I'd like to postpone the decision on this till next month at least. But I have some concerns. And the concerns are, I think what we should have done is
Thank you.
done a continuation of the contract for spring.
Thank you.
They have knowledge of this campus, they designed our chemical storage building. They've spent countless hours that we've paid for in understanding the needs of the district. And I think that by doing this with a whole new architect is, it's just a waste of the money, of the taxpayers' money. And I just think that we went about this all wrong. We should have just, done an amendment to their contract and continued it. For the life of me, I don't understand why we have gone out to bid for an architect when we've kept our owner's rep. We hired the owner's rep to do the project up there, to be our representative, to help us with that. But we didn't go out to bid for owner's rep. So you can't have it both ways. You either need to go out to bid for everybody or not. The way I look at it, we have a team on the field, we need to keep that team. You know, I'm happy that Envision is sitting here, and you all know that, you know, I had my issues with Envision early on. And, you know, they've changed my mind on that, and I've said that publicly, you know, they're a good part of our team. And I just think that the institutional knowledge that Spring brings to our project is, we just need to keep going on where we picked up, or where we've left off. You know, they already know about this campus because they worked on this campus, right? And plus, they have a lot of in-house expertise that I don't know if these other firms have that in-house expertise. You know, that's what I need to dig into if we're gonna continue on with this. But I would like to just see us, either continue this and have this discussion more in depth next month, or, to reject all the bids and negotiate with Spring with the continuation of their contract, the same way we've done with Envision. But if we're gonna have an architect selection, then we also have to do an RFP for, owner's rep. And because Jonathan sat on the selection committee for the architect, you can't continue. The selection committee, if Envision is not selected as the owner's rep, then that selection committee, all their findings and all their work needs to be thrown out.
So we ventured down this path based on legal guidance to move forward with a completely different project from what we were working on at the Highway 41 property.
But Envision is sitting here as part of the team, and I'm glad they are. But what about all the other owners reps that are out there that would like an opportunity to
So
be
I-
doing this project, cause it's a different project?
I think we need to look at the two things separately.
Nope, I completely disagree with that.
I think we need, if I'm stepping out of line, the rest of the board let me know, but, we were provided guidance to move forward with selecting an architectural firm based on a different construction project. Developing a new campus is different from remodeling an existing facility. The board agreed to move forward with the solicitation for architectural services for this campus. So we've spent the last 3 or 4 months moving down this path that the board directed us to do.
Yeah, and I should have objected a lot sooner than today, and I understand it, and I apologize for that. But I've really had time to really think about, this whole process. And, the fact that we treated the position of the owner's rep one way and the architect another, I don't think it's right. And I think I'm a little concerned that somebody may challenge.
Well, I think that's certainly worthy of a discussion with district attorney, but I do see that as a separate thing. I mean, you all gave us the directive to move forward with an RFP, you approved the RFP, we went out for solicitation, we received proposals, the selection committee spent a lot of hours reviewing every proposal that was submitted. And to your point, Commissioner Cox, we reviewed everything that was submitted to look at the experience of the firms. And so that's why we made our determination in how we ranked each of the solicitations based on knowledge of mosquito control operations. And there were some that had experience in working on mosquito control facilities. So that was certainly taken into consideration. There was also one in there who had done previous work on our property as well. So to say the Spring's the only one, that's not the case. So the selection committee spent hours reviewing in grave detail all the proposals. We met in a public forum to discuss the proposals and rank them. Then we followed that up with an interview process of our 2 top-ranking firms, based on the language in the solicitation that you all approved and told us to move forward with. So this is what we have done, and, we feel that, given everything that we reviewed in both the written submissions and the interviews, the recommendation from the selection committee is one that will serve us well in remodeling this campus. I think it would be a mistake to throw all of that work away.
By law, aren't we required to solicit for architects for this project?
That's correct, we are.
Are we by
Because
law required to solicit for owner's rep?
I'm not sure, so I think we do need to look into that.
Okay.
I'm not dismissing that, your concern there at all. But I think the guidance that we've already received from the attorney, and based on the language in the law and the language in the contract with Spring, their services are specific to that geographic location, that property.
Those are amended routinely. I've seen Pasco County do it hundreds of times. They establish relationships and they amend it to the next project. Especially when we have designs of buildings that could be put on this property.
And there are provisions in the Spring contract that would allow us to use some of the design
We'd have
for
to
an
pay for
additional-
that,
for an
but if,
additional fee
that's right, but if they
to
were
incorporate into a
part of the
different
team already,
location.
they just amend it and move on.
Well, we don't know that.
I just, gentlemen, I feel very strongly about this. And, if you guys wanna move on, then you do it, that's fine. I will support the majority we went through an RFP process, selected an owner's rep, and then we enlisted them to help us select an architect. So, if it's good for, going out to bid for an architect, we should have done the exact same thing on the owner's rep. And I feel very strongly that we should have done that. So if we do that and go through the process of an owner's rep, if Envision is not selected again, then the fact that Jonathan sat on the selection committee for the architect, yeah.
I support you, your postponement, so you can have ample time to review everything, I understand it. I would like to look into whether the owner's rep, whether we have to solicit again. I'm certainly fine with Envision, but if legally we need to do so, I wanna make sure that we do. If we're fine with keeping them, I'm fine with saving the taxpayers that much more time and money. But I'm willing to hold off until Michael, as Mr. Commissioner Cox has had a time to review everything.
Well, I appreciate that, because I do wanna go through these, and review them. But I just strictly feel that the whole process is fundamentally flawed. We should have started the process the way we did the last time with the owner's rep, and you can't apply different philosophies to the same project just because you feel like you had a great experience with Envision, which I agree with 100%. But I also think that Spring did a very good job in designing a campus, and there was countless hours spent understanding the needs of the district in that. Now, maybe there's some personality issues that folks may not jive with, but that happens in every organization. And you gotta look past that. You need to look at who the most qualified is. And the fact that, we've used them on this property in the past, I think ultimately saves the taxpayers money. And I also believe that it gives a good end result on the project. They have a long track record with that. So, I think the decision needs to be made, either you do an RFP for an owner's rep, or you scrap the RFP for the architect and negotiate with Spring to amend their contract, which is what I would prefer to do.
If I might recommend that we look at the actual language in CCNA requirements as to what the legal requirements are for both, we know what they are for architectural services, but owner's rep services, I'm not intimately familiar with that to speak on that at this time, so we will seek legal counsel in that regard, but I think to say that if we treat one this way, we treat them both, I think that's something that needs to be determined based on the language in the law. I don't think we can say that at this point. So I will consult legal and see what their guidance is regarding the owner's rep position.
I wanna be part of that call. I would like to be part of that meeting with the attorney.
I can arrange that, we'll work with your schedule. As far as the services that Spring provided, yes, they designed a campus that would have fit our operational needs. Again, a new campus build is very different than remodeling an occupied space. So the experience and the knowledge related to our program is slightly different based on how they're going to have to work with an occupied space. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is the experience we had with spring, and it wasn't merely personality issues, it was responsiveness. One of the things that we looked at for all of the proposals submitted is how many projects each of the firms have. What percent complete are those projects? How is our project going to fit into their schedule? And if you recall, when we hired Spring, the concern from the very beginning was that their workload was too high, they did not have the time for us. And we saw that in our experience working with them. There's email correspondence that went unanswered, which delayed the process, and those things can't be ignored. So, unfortunately, it wasn't personality based, it was responsiveness, the willingness to work with us on design aspects. There were struggles that we've discussed as a board in the past, so we can't forget those things.
Everything when it's shiny and new, looks wonderful from the outside. So, every firm has their limitations and drawbacks and, until you engage with them, you don't really know. So,
I agree with that.
I mean, just, all these proposals, I'm sure, make them look wonderful and great. Why else would they be there, right? I just feel like you can't treat one differently than the other, and that's what we've done.
Okay, so it sounds like we'll move forward with some legal counsel, check the laws on it, and then see what, our next move is. You guys in agreement?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to move the table until the August meeting,
Okay.
the July meeting when I'm gonna be remote.
Until the August meeting?
August meeting.
Well, if we look at our budget year, I mean, by doing that, are we gonna be able to get the project right away this year, this budget year?
I don't know, but I think it's fair that we make sure that Commissioner Cox has had ample time to review it. So he has full breadth of knowledge of what we're doing.
All right. Should we bring those results back to the July meeting and then determine what direction we're going in?
He's
I
gonna
mean,
be
you
remote.
expect to, I know you said you're remote, are you expecting, you've got the calendar, of course, you expect to be able to zoom in on, or wherever you are?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And I'll be present at the meeting.
Okay.
Well, I'm physically not gonna be here,
Right,
or at least that's the plan right now.
sure.
I made a motion, so
Right.
you either put it up or go down.
Okay. No second on the motions, so, sounds like the path forward for now is that you're gonna join Paul. Okay,
Correct.
all right.
Before July, or?
As soon as possible.
Call a question on the motion, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
We need to vote.
Oh, I thought, okay. Keep going with the second, I didn't think we had a second. Okay.
Actually, a
we don't
motion
need
to
one.
table is a non-debatable motion,
Yeah.
so the second that I made the motion, we should have voted on it.
Okay, well, let's vote on the motion. All in favor? Hathaway's Realtor agreement, and as you can see, it was, and you're gonna fill us in, but it was, just amended by legal counsel for some additional, provisions that they put in there. I think we've had, those who've wanted to have had certainly some good time to interface with Berkshire and their staff on this. And, you know, I feel hopefully we can work through this and, you know, reach an agreement on this today. So,
A little background information, just,
Yeah.
so this was negotiated with Berkshire,
No.
with Lore, or?
No, based on, what we provided in the memo, this is, the language, the standard contract language is required for all sort of contracts. The rate, after Steve from our attorney's office, reviewed it, he felt the rate was high, so this is his proposed rate. So we have not gone back to Berkshire
Well-
we have not gone back to, I'm sorry.
I should let you finish up, go
Okay,
ahead.
thank you. We have not gone back to the Realtor group, because you all have not given me direction on what to do with this contract yet. So this is, what our attorney is proposing, we negotiate to.
Okay, and where, I saw the rate list.
Basically 8%, is that what you're saying? Is it,
Is it, I saw it last
it's
night.
3%
It's in the
plus
addendum.
5% instead of 4 plus?
Oh, here it is.
So basically, it's gone from 10% to 8%.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Where are you?
Last page, page 4. Paragraph 8.
Of the Realtor agreement or the addendum?
The addendum.
The addendum.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, sorry.
Agreement. Page 4. So yeah, I see this strikeout is. So it's 3% on the seller side, correct? And then. And 5 and 6 are crossed out on the buyer side.
The 5 should be, 6 is crossed, the
5 is
recommendation
also
is 5.
crossed.
It is, but, that's a mistake. So
Probably is the
it
word
is in
5,
the word,
5.
but not
Okay,
in
yes.
the paren. So they're recommending we change that from 6 to 5.
So in the Berkshire agreement, where is it? It was in here. Has it been pulled?
Number 5 shows the 6%,
It's on the 3rd page, top of the page. Schedule of sales commission.
Oh, there we go. Okay, so on commercial real estate, what is very typical now is that the buyer's rep, buyer's realtor, gets paid from the buyer. It doesn't get paid from the seller. this discussion with Dewey and his group, either Adrian and I did, and, they understood that, and sounded like their willingness to come in agreement with that. So I think that we should eliminate the commission for the buyer's rep. And we should stay with the commission to the seller's rep. So the language here that it says the commission will be 6% should be struck out. And I really think the question at hand then is based on what the attorney's office is recommending here. Do we go with 3 or 4%? Berkshire's asking for 4, and the attorney's recommending 3. Questions on that? I think all of us just saw the amending piece of it, so. I didn't realize that he was modifying that piece of it. Okay, I've got another question, we'll come back to that. In the attorney's agreement, it also indicates that they're going to be the escrow agent, and it looks like title agent. And unfortunately, our attorney's not here, but, any idea why that is? Page 2, item 6. I think that was the case also when we put out, the 3-letter acronym. ITB. That was the case, so, I mean, they must be qualified to do that.
I can't imagine they would offer to do that service.
Yeah, well,
if they're
I'm
not
sure they're qualified, I
qualified.
guess, it's.
Talking about the title service?
Well, title and escrow services usually is handled by Berkshire, and here they're saying it's handled by the attorney's office. That's the recommendation anyway.
Do you have any experience with them, or?
The attorney's office?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you're an attorney, so, yeah, we do. I don't have it on the real estate side.
Is that gonna be a cost savings, or?
Well, see, that's what I'm trying to understand this amendment is they made some changes that obviously follow state statute and put this language in here, but I'm not really clear as to, what is this new section 17?
Where is
Page 2 of the amendment, item 6.
Yeah, under 6.
Oh, I see. So our attorney's office wants it to run through them, is that what we're saying?
Right. Right.
That's pretty self-serving on our attorney to put their own name in there, because, they're gonna make money on title and escrow.
Right.
Plus what we're paying them for.
Yeah, I mean, that makes me really feel good about our attorney's office.
Well,
Matt, how is it typically done?
title services are independent. You can choose anybody you want in the state of Florida.
Including
So it's our
attorneys.
decision, nobody else's. But to answer your question, typically, the seller, us, selects the title company.
So who was the title company when we
And
bought the property?
Berkshire has a good title company. And to make the whole thing relatively go smoothly, because there's really usually very little variation in the costs, between title their title services. I've personally dealt with them for 20 years and never had an issue with them.
Who was the title company on the swap?
I'm trying to look that up now.
Good question.
Did,
I'm pretty sure it was Capstone.
So,
That sounds familiar.
so if, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, that's all right.
But so, they have to do a title search back to how long? Back to the beginning, I guess?
As far as I can, beginning of time, yeah.
Right, so they do a title search, so it seems to me like whoever did it the last time, all they need to do is do a title search from the time you purchased it to today.
That's right, and also the
Whereas if you
discount.
use somebody new, they're gonna have to go back to the beginning of time.
No, that's a good point, because there'll also be a slight discount because the time is short, relatively short,
Mhm.
you know, that since they've done one, so they should do it at a reduced fee, since they only, there's really nothing to search, but they have to.
I'm curious, what, did you happen to speak with the attorney as to why they changed the?
I did not ask
Okay.
about that item, no.
Okay, well, let's strike it out of the
That would be
amendment.
curious. Well, I don't know, is there reasoning behind it, or?
We're gonna find out.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna
because
strike it.
they wanna do it, I mean, it's self-serving.
Let's look in Berkshire's, well, it's their disclosure, let's see. I don't think that in their agreement, they're gonna say who the title company is, they're only gonna show a disclosure that they have ownership of Capstone Title, if you see on page 1, 2, 3, 4. But that's not saying we have to use them, it's just disclosing that they have an ownership. So again, it's our decision, and I just think we've done business with them before, it's gone well, and they're, you know, good and fair, so I think we should just strike out the amendment and then make our selection. We can make our selection later, in fact, we don't even have to do it now. Maybe that's the way to address it, is talk to the attorney's firm and find out is there some reason we're required to work through their title services.
Yeah, I can certainly pose the question.
Yeah,
Um,
and then we'll make that decision later, because again, it's not in the contract.
Right.
Because by Florida state law, we can select anybody we choose.
If you want me to try to find this faster, which of these closing documents would that be listed under?
Can you do a search on Capstone?
What's the main,
Not,
the main reason why we have the addendum?
That's what my question was gonna be, why are we even doing this? I see there's reductions here, which,
so the main reason is all of the extra the Florida state contract language to put in there. The E-Verify, the public records, the, public entity crime statements, those all have to be in all contracts now based on the new law. And then the other concern was that Steve, who reviewed the contract, who's more familiar with this side of things at their office, stated that he felt the fees were too high. So those are the two reasons. So
But he
I-
puts his
But
own
he
name in
slipped his-
there.
I don't know the rationale behind that, but
You got one.
we can certainly ask the question.
So what happened last time around, which is commonplace, the seller, VMAC, hired Feldman Mahoney to do the title escrow and closing services. And again, that's commonplace, it's not by law, but it's commonplace for the seller to choose a title company.
and can we, I'd like the freedom to shop around for the best deal and not be shoehorned into
Yeah.
an attorney that we just so happen to be using for this, that's,
Yeah, saying, hey, I can get a little more out.
Well, we may end up using them.
We may,
You know,
mhm.
yeah.
There might be a good, there might be
I
a
don't
good
wanna
reason.
be forced into it.
Right.
I think you can still move forward with this.
Yeah, I'd like to say,
Today
it's our choice whenever we choose it. We can choose it up until time we get an offer. And at time of offer, we have to have that choice completed, but we have until, we have some time to make a choice on title services.
So, in the interest of time, I will, move approval of the Realtor Service Agreement with the addendum, but striking item number 6, adding a new section 17.
I will second
Just a moment.
that. On say that number 8 is 5, since they struck out the.
No, to me, I show it that it's struck out totally, which makes sense.
5 and 6 are struck out,
That's right.
in the verbiage,
But
but the
not-
figure is still out.
So, so the way this reads, and I would agree with, and it sounds like you.
That's
hopefully
just
do
a scrivener's
too, is that
error.
it's
Yeah.
3% to the selling organization.
Correct. And then
According to
5,
what it says here.
the gross.
And then the other way around.
Yes,
Yeah, it's 3% to the buyer's
to the
agent.
buyer.
Right. And then.
And 5% to the
Gross
sellers.
sales is, yeah,
No, it's not. Well, Berkshire represents us, and it says 3% of gross payable to Berkshire.
Yeah, but if they
If-
represent the seller and buyer, I think it goes for 5, doesn't it?
Well, if the buyer is represented by another broker, or Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Florida Properties Group broker, is not the listed broker.
So if I may, so let's say that Berkshire has both sides of the deal. The other realtor stands on their own. They represent the buyer. In commercial real estate, it's up to them to have an agreement with that buyer, to whatever their fee might be. In negotiations, they could try to get it from us. That would be our decision, later on, based on what their offer is. But, here, to me, I think this is written correctly, item 8, and it strikes out the 5 and 6. And it modified the Berkshire agreement to read 3, which represents us. And I'm okay with that. That's what we discussed with Berkshire.
It's roughly 6 figures, I'm estimating.
But you guys do have a motion on the table. And,
So the motion stands.
okay, with that, we'll take a vote on it.
Yep.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries unanimously. Good deal, we can move forward on getting this property marketed. And, we don't have to, we're also not gonna sell it to anybody in China. According to what this says.
Or Cuba.
Or Cuba, that's,
Cuba.
yeah, or Russia. It's amazing what gets put in a real estate deal these days, right? Very good, well, that's nice progress.
Unfinished business?
Yeah, but just so we're clear on the title things, we probably should contact all 3 of those agencies and ask for a approximate bid based on what we put out there. So that would be Berkshire, the attorney firm and the previous attorney firm, their title company.
So you want me to get a proposal for their services to sell the property? Is that what you're asking?
That's right, for escrow and title services. And just say we're not, it doesn't have to be immediate, but certainly get it underway. All right, next thing, unfinished business and our popular Marathon Road discussion.
Adrian and I, 2 weeks ago, I guess it's been now. Went over to the county building, met with the county administrator, his chief deputy, and the county attorney on Marathon Road. We asked that, Owen, our attorney Steve was with us. We asked for them to take over the maintenance of the road. County administrator really asked for a little more information. They didn't say no. What they asked for was whether or not we could join the HOA that already was in existence on the other part of the West Pasco Industrial Park. And so that's sort of where we're at right now. And then, they were gonna do some research on their side to, to further the conversation with Pasco County. I thought it was a okay meeting, so we're sort of in a holding pattern. I sort of hit the highlights there, Adrian.
Yes,
Who heads up the HOA? I mean, anybody know who's on the board?
We do know.
Steve was looking into it and he,
Steve?
from attorney's office.
Oh.
He was the one who did all the research on
Oh,
the legal
okay.
documents. So he attended the meeting with us and, so he has gathered some information. I have not yet had time to review that information, but I can send that off to you forward.
Okay.
So, the county administrator asked us to approach the HOA about the possibility of that our road being included in the industrial park and see, how they come back at. I also threw out the, obviously pending approval of this board, if the county was willing to take it over, but with the stipulation of, bringing it to county standards, that we would at least bring that option back to the board. And, he seemed a little receptive to that. But we'll see. At some point, we really need to talk to the other folks that use the road and try to work with them on this as well. We all have a mutual interest in keeping the road in good shape.
Sounds like a good idea. It's something we hadn't looked at before because we realized many years ago that we weren't part of the West Pasco Industrial Park. Yes, we should relook it. I mean, that makes good sense to me, relook at whether or not we wanna become part of the industrial park.
Yeah.
There's a benefit.
I think it seems to me like this property, well, all these properties were sort of more of an afterthought of the industrial park.
Right.
Because of the connectivity of the back road out. So,
Just like our water lines, utilities, and everything is not documented whatsoever here.
right.
Because Roy Spear did a very sloppy job on it. That's, it was done a few years ago. But we got what we got now.
Yeah, we just have to deal with it, but
Yeah.
stay tuned, this is the final report for today.
Right.
Continue to.
Okay,
prior meeting, over the last several years, we've had a very small number of individuals in our community continue to target myself and the district with misinformation, slander, and unfounded accusations. Despite repeated public scrutiny and exhaustive increased transparency that we have performed in the last couple of years, there's been no credible evidence to support the claims whatsoever that I am unqualified or the district is somehow being mismanaged, and that I don't know what I'm doing in this role. None of these claims, of course, are rooted in any reality. They're simply fake news. My qualifications and performance record speak for themselves, and I've spent nearly 2 decades dedicated to mosquito control and protecting public health in the state of Florida. Since my appointment to this role, my focus has been on improving operations, increasing transparency, making fiscally responsible decisions, and protecting the public health in here in Pasco County. That record is easily verifiable, and all of which are available for public review. Yet, instead of engaging constructively, these individuals seem intent on searching for something, anything that they can misrepresent, from our budget to our use of aerial assets. Continue to claim that we don't use our helicopters enough to their satisfaction, which is not based on actual data, but conjecture, or that replacing our aircraft with contracting would suffice. The reality is that our district must have its own capacity to be able to respond expeditiously and immediately to public health threats and natural disasters, as we have talked exhaustively in this boardroom. Reliance solely on contractors simply cannot provide the flexibility or the rapid response that is absolutely required, as very recently demonstrated when Hillsborough County Mosquito Management requested our assistance during an outbreak of salt marsh mosquitoes they've experienced in the last couple of weeks. Their contractor is unable to respond appropriately and quickly to the district needs in providing aerial support, and Hillsborough County Mosquito Management needed a district partner who could move into action very quickly. So they contacted us. Unfortunately, we did not move forward with that mission due to pending FAA approval and FDAC's approval, which again is another important example of why we cannot put public health response on hold waiting for third-party response. However, we are continuing to move that forward with Hillsborough County Mosquito Management and getting a proper MOU in place for, not specifically for one instance, but to have in the coffers for future assistance, whether they need ours or vice versa, so that we do have
Mutual aid agreement.
a mutual aid agreement in place that is approved by the department, so that it's ready to go whenever they need to reach out again. Just a prime example of why reliance on contractors is not the way to go.
You know, in all actuality.
Something needed.
That was really well timed.
In all actuality, we should have mutual aid agreements with all of our surrounding people, because it's, as we've learned in the hurricanes, and not just the last two, but it's a regional response, not just a county response or, you know, a city response, it's a regional response.
I agree, and Fernando County reached out to us last year after the hurricanes, looking
Yeah.
for aerial support as well. So we have been talking about getting something in place with Fernando, so,
We need a mutual aid agreement with our
all-
own county.
Well, so
Along
that
with
is
everybody
still-
else, right.
Still
Yeah.
trying to get Pasco County
I know.
Emergency Services to work on an agreement.
We ran out of time when we met with the county administrator,
It was
so we couldn't
on the list
talk to him
of
about
4
it.
items, and they gave us 20 minutes, and he literally stood up when he was done. So
Wow.
we didn't get to ask the
We had
county
a hard
administrator
meeting with the commissioner,
about,
so.
the mutual aid agreement with emergency management. We were able to move it forward with the state, no problem, but our own Pasco County is, not as responsive. Again, reliance on third parties, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. So yes, we are exploring options to try to get something in place with our neighbors.
All 5 neighbors?
We can go that route. At this point, we've just had communications with Hillsborough and Hernando counties, and then.
Because the need arose.
Faster. Because the need arose, exactly, yes. But, there's nothing to say we can't reach out to the others as well, just to have something in place.
This thing's a good idea.
I'm sure they'd be open to it. I mean, we had our, regional workshop, and, that was an item that we discussed, so, there's certainly the, interest in furthering those discussions.
I'm surprised after 75 years we don't already, but
There's a lot of things
you
that
can
the
thank your
district wasn't doing.
predecessors. I know you're playing catch up.
And look how poor mosquito control is north of here to
Yeah.
Capitol.
Yep.
Those people are in danger.
Yeah.
Right, so, yes, we will explore, broadening that to our other neighbors once we've got a good agreement in place with Hillsborough. It'd essentially be a very, very similar arrangement. I'd also like to address, most recent misleading claims surrounding my attendance at the leadership training hosted by the Florida Association of Special Districts last week. The week-long training and educational program for senior leaders in special districts across the state. What Ms. Julian fails to understand is that, frankly, because it doesn't fit the unfounded narrative, which continues to perpetuate, is that every session and presentation that is given during this particular meeting is tracked via scan badges. So, if anyone is really interested in the continuing education that I received, going towards my certified district manager credential that I possess, which is actually, a really positive thing for the district as it enhances district credibility and reinforces public trust in how we operate and serve this community.
Mr. Chairman,
Um,
could I interject something?
Yeah, sure.
Adrian, you don't need to justify this crap to us. I mean, I think I did speak to the board when I say we support you wholeheartedly. And, all this crap
Thank you.
that Ms. Julian puts out into this little group of people,
It's not little.
whatever, that's what you think.
Okay.
But, the fact of the matter is that all of this was debated at the last election cycle, okay? And the people who believe this bullshit, they lost. They lost big time. Randy and I are sitting here, we support you. We
Congratulations.
support the actions of the district and everything. So that's what elections are for. If they don't like it, then run again.
Can I say something
That's all
about,
there is to it.
No.
can I say something
It's
about
not
what you
open to
said
the
previously?
public. It's a closed
No,
meeting.
you can't.
Okay. Well, it is,
So,
public
it's,
comment is allowed on every agenda item.
And you chose not to do it,
I forgot to sign up.
so. So
Whatever, I
can
was
we
just
move
gonna make
on
a compliment
can
to
we move
Adrian,
on
but
and
that's
talk
okay.
about the important business of the district
I
instead of
appreciate-
all this crap?
I appreciate the continued support of each of you commissioners of this board, our dedicated employees, and the countless residents who actually do.
I mean,
make
personally,
the vital role
with
we
the,
play.
with the fake stuff that's being put out there and propagated, I personally think that you and the district should sue these people for slander. I mean, I personally think that's what we should do, and just put an end to it, and have a fight about it, whoever the hell wins the lawsuit wins. But you just can't say unsubstantiated claims forever. Can we talk about, I mean, if you wanna go down that road, I'm happy to do that, and I'll be happy to make the motion that we sue 'em, but, I'm a little over it.
As we all are. Thank you, Commissioner. So in real district news, not this
Thank you.
founded misleading noise,